It was billed as a slugfest, and it turned out to be just that. Stanford over Wisconsin at the Rose Bowl 20-14, and certainly a hard-fought affair that came down to the final Wisconsin drive. Make no mistake about it, there was one unit that won this football game. It was the Stanford front seven, the defensive line and linebackers. The defense as an entire unit, spectacular throughout the season, especially in defending the pass in the Pac-12. But the back four not needed so much in the passing game, as Wisconsin was unable to provide any threat downfield, and that proved to be the undoing for the Badgers. And specifically, one play where the front seven won the game for Stanford. Wisconsin trailing 20-14, under 3 minutes left to play. They had gained a couple first downs with Kurt Phillips at quarterback. Phillips throwing the football over the middle, and Josh Morrow got his hand up, deflected the ball to Yeshua Amana, who made his first pick of the season, and it was the pick of the season for Stanford in clinching this Rose Bowl game over Wisconsin. Again, 20-14, the only turnover of the game, and it proved decisive in this type of football game because after Stanford came out big in the first quarter, scored on its first two drives, it turned into a field position kind of game, a Barry Alvarez kind of game for Stanford and Wisconsin. Run the football, don't make mistakes in the passing game, punt the ball if needed. And for Wisconsin, with no first downs for either team in the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, Wisconsin continually punted Stanford into its own end. But then when Stanford punted back and Wisconsin had good field position, the Badgers could never take advantage once they got that score to 17-14. So again, Stanford came out, first two drives, gained 159 yards on those first two drives, touchdown drives, 14-0 Cardinal. Then the Wisconsin defense settled in and really ramped up the defense, really got aggressive play from those great linebackers, Mike Taylor and also Borland at linebacker, two of the top tacklers in the Big Ten, coming after that Stanford running game. This is the type game we're talking about. Stephon Taylor, Stanford running back, player of the game on offense in the Rose Bowl. 20 carries, 88 yards. His longest run from scrimmage was 10 yards, and he's the offensive player of the game. That was the type game it was for Stanford in defeating Wisconsin in this one, 20-14. Wisconsin's really undoing in this one was that they could not get the ball downfield. They're not built like that. In previous years, yeah, they had the big-time running game with, of course, Montae the last few years, but they had Russell Wilson at quarterback. They had more dynamic playmakers going downfield, especially at the tight end position. But they don't have that type of team. They have the running game in Wisconsin style, but not the wide receivers to make it happen. And with Kurt Phillips at quarterback, he's done an admirable job, but he doesn't make big plays in the passing game. 10 of 16 for 83 yards. He hit on one 22-yarder to Jared Abbrederis. Other than that, this is an incredible stat in 2012 football, that Wisconsin gets to the Rose Bowl and almost wins the Rose Bowl, gaining 22 yards on one pass play and no more than 9 in its other 15 pass attempts. No more than 9 yards on any pass play, and they had the ball in their hands with under 3 minutes to play to possibly win the Rose Bowl. But that turned out to be the undoing, because you can only run the ball so much and be conservative so much and have no dynamic playmakers on the outside. You can't grind it out for 70, 75, 80 yards, especially against Stanford's defense, one of the best in the country. We've talked all season about Florida. We've talked about South Carolina, LSU, even Michigan State, despite losing 6 games with one of the best defenses in the country. And Stanford is right there with those teams, and of course, Alabama and Notre Dame defensively. So it means that Wisconsin finishes at 8-6. Brett Bielema, always, of course, off to Fayetteville in Arkansas and the SEC. So you bring in Gary Anderson from Utah State. We're going to talk in the offseason more about the future of Wisconsin football and the future of Stanford football, because it appears as though what Jim Harbaugh has started and Andrew Luck is certainly continuing under David Shaw. The Stanford Cardinal, 23-4 the past few seasons, 3 consecutive BCS trips and 2 wins. So we'll look at Stanford's roster during the offseason and certainly need your feedback, Stanford fans, Pac-12 fans, on Stanford's future in going into 2013. But it seems to be very bright for David Shaw and the Stanford football program. Your thoughts on the Rose Bowl. We need to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.